Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Bosley, and for the better part of the past 26 years, I've had the distinct and honorable pleasure of working alongside of some of the top peak performers in the world. And here what we do each week is we bring their ideas and strategies directly to you. You ever feel like sometimes you're stuck on that hamster wheel of life and you're just simply spinning and you're not going in the direction or the trajectory you'd like? Well, if so, you've landed in the right spot. The Bamboo Lab Podcast is written, created, and broadcast just for you, all you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. All right, I want to read one heart letter out today that we received actually got this one today from Gregory at Ameriprise Financial. He said he was talking about the Derek Kinney episode we did in episode 35. He said, Brian, this was so profound, so many life lessons. It's not about how smart or intelligent you are, it's about how you make people feel. Giving is not only good, but it's healthy. Finding a cause and giving it all you have to grow your business lean is what is when faced with adversity. I could just go on and on. He said the simple tactical takeaways for me was time block. Thank you, Derek. That's from Gregory. Just another good one of our many hundreds of letters we've received over the past few weeks. All right, before we get started to introduce our amazing guest, I want to share with you this episode is dedicated to two amazing people. Happy anniversary, number 7, to Tom and Sharisa of East Grand Rapids, Michigan. I love you both very much. I love your daughters, and I still love your little dog, Harvey, too. So this one goes out to you, all 5 of you. This one's for you. All right, let's dissect. All right, now as we give a little update, we are being broadcast and followed and subscribed to on 6 continents, 28 countries, 47 of our 50 states, and over 600 cities across the country. And today we have an amazing guest, somebody I hounded a little bit here to get on board. Most of you are going to recognize his name. I know I followed him since I was a child, actually, reading the Detroit Free Press. And we have Mick McCabe on today. So I'm going to read a little bit about him and share with you. For those who don't know who Mick is, you're going to be very impressed with his bio. And you also, to let you know, as I've said, the Bamboo Lab Podcast is a very real, very unedited, raw podcast. And Mick is having floors put up in his house today, but we're going to go live anyway, and we're going to allow you to experience what Mick is experiencing today with the noise in the background. All right. Mr. McCabe was born in Allen Park, Michigan, and he graduated from Allen Park Cabrini High School. Then he went on to the University of Detroit. Then he embarked on a 46-year sports writing career at the Detroit Free Press. All of you people in Michigan know who Mick McCabe is. I know you all know. He covered a variety of sports assignments, but his primary focus was high school and college sports. And this one I loved. He was nicknamed Son of Swami for the predictions of high school football and basketball games. I remember reading those on a consistent basis. In 2010, Mick was named the Michigan Sportswriter of the Year and won several state and national awards since then. In 2014, he was only one of 5 sports writers to be inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. His focus on high school girls' athletics led the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan to rename their Miss Basketball Award the Mick McCabe Miss Basketball Award. That's quite an honor. And he was inducted into the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame in 2018. Now, he shares this journey in life with his amazing wife, who is St. Joyce, of 47 years together. I would definitely claim she's probably a saint. 47 years. They have a daughter, Katie, who's a pediatrician in Chicago, son, Kevin, who's a theology professor at Seton Hall, and a son, Chris, who's a senior manager at Amazon. They also have 4 grandchildren. I mean, that right there is a resume right there in a bio of itself, just what his children are accomplishing. And he and St. Joyce call lovely Allen Park their home. So, Mick McCabe, welcome to the Bamboo Lab Podcast, my friend.
It's fun to be here.
Well, I'm going to start off with I know who you are just because I followed you and, of course, followed you on Facebook and read all of your predictions over the years. And I remember getting the Detroit Free Press as a kid. And I would always go, when I was a young kid, I'd go to the funny papers on Sundays. And then when I became a little older, it was always Mom took everything else and I took the sports page. So I read probably a great deal of what you wrote from probably 80 to 90 anyway. So it's an honor to have you on here. But I know who you are. But can you please share with the Bamboo Lab podcast members, who's Mick McCabe?
Yeah, I'm a sports writer with the Free Press. I did try to retire in 2016, but 10 months later they asked if I could come back on a part-time basis. So this is, I'm beginning my 53rd year with the Free Press.
How is semi-retirement treating you?
It's good. I flunked total retirement. I flunked it so badly. I have absolutely no hobbies. Long before we ever heard of Lorena Bobbitt, St. Joyce made that threat if I ever tried to play golf. So I've never played golf. And I was bored out of my mind. And then the Free Press called and says, could you help out? So it's worked out great. Worked out well for the Free Press and even better for me.
I think the alternative is probably a lot worse than just continue to work a little bit and not take up golf.
Yes, exactly.
So you grew up in Allen Park then, Mick?
Well, actually, I was born in Chicago, and we moved here in 1957 from Chicago. So, for the most part, yes, grew up here in Allen Park.
Wonderful. What is it? I know when we talked before the podcast, you had mentioned lovely Allen Park. What is it that you love so much about Allen Park?
Well, it's a nice blue-collar community. You're not playing one-upsmanship like goes on in places like Grosse Pointe and some of those. And I think that the school, I went to Allen Park Cabrini. All three of my kids went there too. And it's a good Catholic school. And, we like our neighbors, and it's just a nice place to raise kids.
That's wonderful. I love, and when I look at the success that you and your family have achieved and what your children are achieving, obviously it spit out some good educated people.
Yeah, and Cabrini worked out extremely well for them, way better than it worked out for me. I always say I was in the third of my class that made the upper two-thirds possible, because I wasn't a real good student, but two of them were valedictorians, and Chris was like third or fourth, I think, in his class.
Wow.
So, and two of them, Katie and Chris, went to Albion, where they played a couple of sports each, and Kevin went to Notre Dame, and the cool part to me was none of them got a B ever.
Wow.
in college. So that worked out real well.
Boy, I tell you, Mick, I strived for B's in college.
They were complaining once about an A-. I said, I never got any A-. I don't know what's wrong with you guys, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, when you were younger, then did you always aspire to be a writer, or was it more the sports? Okay, you did.
Yeah, I realized at an early age I wasn't going to pitch for the Tigers, and I wasn't going to be a quarterback for the Lions, and the Pistons really didn't need somebody like me. And then I started writing for the school newspaper. I knew I was going to be involved in sports some way because that's all I did as a kid. We lived in a neighborhood, unlike today, where parents have to organize everything for their kids to be involved in athletics. We had a group of guys, and we'd get up in the morning and we'd go out and play, and then you all went home for lunch, and then we played in the afternoon game after lunch, and then in the evening, if our whatever baseball team we were on that was organized, if we weren't playing that night, we'd get together and play another game. And I was talking to Lloyd Carr the other day because I went to a funeral in Riverview where he grew up. And we went down this Vreeland, and there was a Vreeland Park, and it was just a street that had it was just grassy in lots. And I remember I called him and said, "Isn't that where you and Woody Woodenoffer, who coached the Vanderbilt and coached all over, was a longtime pro assistant." Woody had his group of guys, and Lloyd had his. And every day they'd get together and have a game, play football or baseball, whatever it was. And that's, those were technically the good old days when they didn't have to worry about parents being involved. Now parents are in there and they're ruining everything. So, yeah, it was so then I started writing for the school newspaper. And I remember my junior year, Monsignor Mano was our pastor, and he also was a columnist. He had a Sunday column in the Detroit News. So one Sunday he wrote that high school football should be abolished, and that was ridiculous to me. So Sister Edwards says, well, you should go ask him about it. And I did, and I wrote a column about it and how he was wrong. And then late in the year, our baseball coach left, and so we had we were looking for a coach, except Monsignor said, we're going to drop baseball. So that led to another column by me, and I understood he went storming into the principal's office with a crumpled up copy of the school newspaper. I said, "Hey, this was fun. I may have to finish my senior year at Allen Park High, but he didn't throw me out." And really, knowing his newspaper background, that was understandable, about First Amendment rights and all that. But so I decided then in my junior year of high school, every decision I made going forward was what's going to help get me to the Detroit Free Press. So here I am.
The Free Press was always your goal then, from that age on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely, the Free Press.
So you were protesting. You were somewhat of an activist with your written word back in high school.
Oh, yeah, I've been a jerk a long time. Yeah, one of those guys.
One of those guys. Okay, always rocking the boat. I've been a jerk a long time. I think I might find that might be the name of today's podcast.
Yeah. Okay. That'll work.
I think we'll change that one up. So growing up then, Allen Park, blue collar community, but a very nice community even back then.
Yeah.
You achieved your goals that you set in high school. Who was an inspiration for you back then?
Well, I mean, I thought Joe Falls was tremendous, and he was the best writer ever in this, in Detroit newspaper industry until we got Mike Downey and then Mitch Albom, of course. And I'd say Mitch was the best ever. But Joe, I mean, he owned Detroit. He was Mitch before Mitch. And then, of course, was Hal Schramm, the Swami. And he covered high school athletics. And I read every word he wrote back in the 60s. And then so I kind of wanted to do what they did. And I got to the Free Press in 1970 June 3rd, 1970, as a copy boy in sports. And here we are.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, those are four pillars of the community right there that you just mentioned. Of course, Mitch Albom is more recent for me. But the other three, I remember reading their articles and their columns back in the day as well. So, and Joe Falls passed away several years ago, if I'm not mistaken, didn't he?
Yes, and the Swami Hal Schramm passed away in '87, and so they wanted to continue with having someone pick games, and they said, you should probably do it. We just got to come up with a name. I said, well, how about Son of Swami? And they liked that, and so I started doing that in the fall of '87.
Mick, covering 53 years of sports, what if you had to summarize it? What is the thing you love most about that? Because that's clearly a long-term passion. What do you like?
I really like the kids, getting to talk to the kids, doing feature stories on kids. Meeting a guy like Jim Abbott, and of course, Ervin Johnson was tremendous, and Tyrone Wheatley and Derek Jeeter, and you meet all those guys, but then there's other guys who are just guys, and girls too. We were the first newspaper ever to cover girls athletics, and we put a lot into a coverage of girls basketball as the premier sport. And we also had a track meet, girls invitational, statewide girls invitational track meet. We did that the week before the between the regionals and the state meet. Okay. And that went over quite well, too.
I didn't realize the Free Press was the first to cover female sports, girls' sports.
Yeah. It was, I went to a girls' basketball game. It was a city championship, Farmington Hills Mercy playing Detroit Gas Tech. And the gym was pretty much packed. It was a high school gym. And Mercy was winning. And all of a sudden, the cast cheering section, which was mostly girls, began chanting, "Hey, Mercy, you're hot, but who's going to win it in the parking lot?" And, there were a lot of parents there, of course, and the Mercy kids especially were really, really good athletes, good basketball players. It wasn't a GAA, Girls Athletic Association, which was like open gym or something back in the 60s. And, and it dawned on me that I saw all these parents there, and, hey, they want to read their daughters' names in the paper just as much as the boys' parents do. And I said, this is a whole other audience that no one has really gone after, and I think we should do that. I talked to George Puskas, who was the sports writer at the time, and Ken Clover, who ran the daily operation, and they agreed. And in the early years, I would go to the first half of a game, watch it, and then drive back to the office because I had to be there to take the scores and write everything up and get it in the paper. And then it was a big deal when I was able to just go to a game and stay there for the whole game.
I just remembered that a young lady from my hometown of St. Ignace won the Mick McCabe Miss Basketball Award in 2003. And it would be Krista Clement.
Yep, she was supposed to be our daughter-in-law.
Really?
No. They were just, she and my son Chris were just friends.
Oh, okay.
But it would have been fine if that would have worked out. The Clements are wonderful, wonderful people.
They really
and Krista still to this day gave the best acceptance speech ever. And so, and we've been doing this since like 81 or 82 or something like that. And it was off the cuff. I mean, she didn't get up there and read an acceptance speech. She just went off the cuff, and she was tremendous. She's one of my all-time favorites. In fact, I got a picture of her, she and I, taken at that award ceremony.
Well, then she went on to represent University of Michigan basketball.
Yep. She's one of two people who were 4-year captains at Michigan. There was another guy. Mm-hmm.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get the latest insights from top mortgage pros on Mortgage Connects, a podcast by MGIC. We interview thought leaders from across the industry to share their wide-ranging expertise and candid views on critical market developments and current housing trends. Our guests reveal highly effective marketing and referral strategies, training tips and best practices, and what you can expect from the mortgage market in the future. Hear from experts like best-selling author Todd Duncan, U.S. Bank's Lenny McNeil, and Freddie Mac's Danny Gardner. Listen to Mortgage Connects on your favorite app or at mortgageconnects.com today.
Wow. Do you remember anything particular of what made her acceptance award so fantastic?
Well, it was just heartfelt, and talked about her school and the classmates, and Doug and Doreen Ingalls, the coaches, and how much she loved being part of St. Ignace and the program and everything like that.
Oh, they are. That's an amazing family, and you've also mentioned a couple of other names, amazing people, Doug and Doreen Ingalls. They've done some fantastic things for the basketball program.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what have you seen? I'm just going to go the last 3 years, Mick, because the last 3 years have been kind of, across the globe. We've had the quarantining and all these things. In the last 3 years, what would you say your biggest learning has been, or learnings?
How many idiots there are out there. For instance, Mark Ewell, people have no idea how bad it upset Mark Ewell, who was almost a brand new executive director of the Michigan High School Athletic Association, how difficult it was for him to put these girls and boys basketball state tournaments on hold, as well as the swimming state finals on hold. And he had every reason, or he had every intention to resume those tournaments and begin spring sports as quickly as possible. But then when the governor shut down the schools, it was absolutely impossible to do that. And it haunted him that those spring sports athletes never got a chance to do anything. At least it was a regular season for basketball. And so then the next year, they had to wait a while and before football season began. And I remember them before the football finals, River Rouge was playing DeWitt in the Division III game, and the idiot basketball coach at Brother Rice tweeted out, "I hope Rouge scores 100 today." Well, because Mark Ewell's son, Grant, played for DeWitt. And this idiot coach thought that all Mark Ewell cared about was getting the football season in, and he was just going to not play basketball or any spring sports. Well, anybody with he should have realized that Mark Ewell's wife is a girls' basketball coach. So he would have been sleeping on the couch for the rest of his life if he didn't let basketball season go. And then his son also played hockey and also played baseball. So Mark was going to get everything in, and he did. Good. And there were a lot of people let them play up in Lansing, protesting, and what really killed me was all these people up there without wearing masks. And I know it was outside, but this was incredibly contagious at that point, where being outside really didn't make, especially in close quarters the way they were. And anyway, that was the big thing. And Mark did an exceptional job of guiding us through that with the best way possible.
I think so often we look at high school sports it's almost an icing on the cake or even college sports. It's not as important. A lot of people don't give it the importance it really is, not just to the university and the fans, but to the players out there playing. I mean, when we miss those opportunities, we're missing memories that will change the course of our lives and ideas and that discipline and that, the agony of defeat and the thrill of victory. And those things form these young people much more than sitting in a classroom do. In my opinion, I know I got the privilege of playing rugby football at Central Michigan University, and it was the first time in my life when I stepped on that rugby pitch that I realized after 20 years of my life that I could be good at something, and it changed the trajectory of my life. And so many young people miss that opportunity. And it may not just be sports; it could be some other extracurricular activity. But when we take those away, it can have disastrous adverse effects on our future.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest classroom in any high school is a football field.
Amen.
Yeah, this is an educational activity. That extracurricular, well, kind of, but I think it's just so important to the curriculum to be able to play high school athletics. And I think football is the best learning sport out there. It builds character and teamwork and all that. And then, but the other sports I cross country. Our two boys ran cross country, and it was tremendous on that. And our youngest one ran in college too. It was a great experience for them. And what it also is, nobody realizes, it's an unbelievable datorama thing. We were sitting at this meet, and I was sitting next to a girl from Cabrini, and this guy from someplace in Macomb County walks up and sees Cabrini on her singlet, and he says, "I don't know where Cabrini is, but I think I'm talking to the best-looking girl in that school." I mean, what a pickup line, right? And the interaction between the boys and the girls and different teams and everything. It's almost a dating service, but it's tough. I love the T-shirts I would see that would say, "Our sport is your punishment," which is perfect for cross country.
Yeah,
how many times do you hear the coach say, "Okay, start running"? Yeah.
I actually ran cross country my freshman year of high school before I started playing football, and I got to be coached by Barry Pearson, who was a tough disciplinarian. I'm not sure which sport was more difficult for me. They're both.
Yeah, it's grueling.
Oh my goodness, it's grueling. Yeah, maybe that's why I decided to play football, because I needed a break. But with Coach Pearson, we didn't get much of a break. But So 53 years in this industry, I can tell you're a pretty grizzled veteran, and probably not a lot of things bother you at this point. But can I ask you, over the course of your career, what is the most difficult thing you've gone through?
Well, we got a lot of feedback, negatively speaking, from the Ed Martin investigation that we did. I was kind of like the lead reporter on that, and with the Fab Five and Chris Webber and all the money and stuff like that. We got a lot of Michigan fans hate mail and stuff like that. But I mean, we were just doing our jobs, and I mean, it wasn't that difficult. But when you go after individual high school coaches who are cheating like crazy, and you get feedback from them, but I mean, so what? Who cares? You're just doing your job. So
did you come into the industry? Did you come into the industry with thick skin, or did you acquire the thick skin as you went through your career?
So I acquired it. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
So, what would you say, Mick, now after you look back on your career and look forward into what you're continuing to do? What is a win for you in life? What would you consider a victory?
A good story. You just keep looking for the next good story about a kid. I try to do so much of high school athletics when I got in there was everything was coach driven. Coaches were almost the only people interviewed in stories. Very rarely did they start out, and today too with a lot of guys, that they talk to the coach and that's it. Well, I prefer talking to the athletes themselves, and I mean the kids are honest, and they haven't been around long enough to know that you're supposed to lie to the media. So I get a lot of great stuff. I figure I get better feature stories than guys covering Michigan State, the Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, whatever. I think I get better feature stories because the kids are so open and so honest. And so a good story is that's a win for me.
I'm sure you have a lot of favorite stories. Were you able to pull up a favorite story you can share with the Bamboo Pack audience?
Well, one was I was talking to this. I called the athletic director, who I know real well, at Flint Central, and I said, "This is kind of a stupid question, but your quarterback, how many hands does he have?" He starts like, "Oh, no, you mean Jimmy Abbott?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, he's got left hand. He was born with no right hand." And so I got his phone number. I talked to Coach, and I talked to Jim, and I thought the last question was going to be, "Do you play any other sports?" And when he said no, okay, that's it. But he said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Really, what?" And he says, "Baseball." I said, "Well, what are you, a pitcher?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "No kidding." I said, "Are you any good?" He goes, "Well, I'm being recruited by colleges." And I said, "Now, Jim, everybody gets letters from colleges, everybody. When they call up and they say they want you to come visit, then they're serious." He says, "I'm visiting Michigan next weekend." And back then, this is the mid-'80s, they were the best college baseball team in the Midwest. Went to College World Series, I think, 3 or 4 times with them. Barry Larkin, Chris Sabo, those guys. Yeah, they were tremendous. So I called up Bud Middaugh, who was the coach, and I said, "Are you recruiting a kid with one hand?" He goes, "Oh, Jimmy." He goes, "Yeah, we think he might make a good relief pitcher." Well, I mean, he threw a no-hitter for the Yankees. He was the number 8 pick of the first round by the Angels. Went right to the major leagues. He was the first, when he was on the USA baseball team, the national team, he was the first pitcher to beat Cuba in the Pan Am games. And, he didn't have a Hall of Fame career, but he had lived a Hall of Fame life. I mean, when, he was obviously handicapped in the sense that he didn't have a right hand, but he never treated it as a handicap. And, with that celebrity, a lot of demands were made of him, and he embraced it. He was a role model for a lot of kids with different kind of handicaps. Just a wonderful, wonderful guy.
And a lot of people know Jim Abbott's name.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's a I would say a household name across, at least in a lot of parts of the country. I mean, he's my age, so he graduated the same year I did in '85. So I followed his journey, and of course, I'm a Michigan fan at heart. So I watched him, play for Michigan and things like that. He's a pretty outstanding. He and the Bird, Mark the Bird Fidrych, are the two probably the pitchers I followed the most back in my youth and later on in life.
Yeah, I did a lot of stories on Mark Fidrych back when he was with the Tigers. A lot of sidebars on him where they would send me to a game he was pitching, and that would be my subject because it was just such an amazing deal. If you haven't lived through it, if you didn't experience it, it's hard to imagine what Tiger Stadium was and the Detroit area was like when he was pitching.
And he passed away not too many years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, what a shame.
It is. Now, I remember when we were playing Little League at the end of every season in St. Ignace, they would send us a couple of bus loads of us players down to watch a Tigers game, and we got to watch the Bird pitch, and we were kind of sitting above the dugout. We kind of snuck down, a few of us did, and I was a big fan, and so we hollered his name, and he looked up and waved at us. We were probably 10 feet away from him, and I still remember that moment.
Yeah,
he was one of my first heroes.
Yep. Well, he was quite a character too.
Yeah, he was, and I think he went after he retired. He went into farming or something. He had something.
Yeah, he had a farm.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, those are bringing back some great memories. So, what's next for you, Mick? What's the next stage in your career and your life?
Just this football season. That's getting ready. I got the top 25 teams finished, the top 50 players. Doing a story on the overall number one team, and then found another story I'm going to work on today. And so just the football season and go to Highland Park, Illinois when I'm needed to babysit.
Oh, wonderful. So, wonderful. Mm-hmm. Well, as we begin to wrap up, is there question that I didn't ask you, Mick, that you'd like to answer, or is there anything you'd like to leave with our listeners here, as we call them, the Bamboo Pack?
I'm just ordinary guy who got a job writing, for the Detroit Free Press, and I've stuck around for a long time.
Well, as the subject line of our podcast is normal people doing extraordinary things, I think you fit perfectly well into that.
Yeah, well, don't ask my wife about extraordinary things. She, changing a light bulb is about as much as I can do around the house. So she just says her next husband will know how to use a hammer and won't be allergic to grass and stuff like that. Yeah, all my faults.
At least you don't golf.
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Well, we won't ask St. Joyce to be a guest on here, so we will only hear your side of the story. Well, good. Well, Mick, if I could just have 3 or 4 minutes of your time after the podcast is done, I'd like to just thank you one-on-one. But in the meantime, we're going to wrap it up. And we spent the time I shared with you. We've been on for about 33 minutes so far, and I know you're busy. You've got more stories to write and more leads to follow, and we've got football season coming up. So I just want to take this time to thank you for being such an amazing guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Well, it was a pleasure. That's for sure.
I appreciate that. All right, Bamboo Pack out there, everyone. Thank you for following us. Continue, please click that like button, subscribe, follow, rank, and review us, and share this podcast with 3 other people. This story of listening to Mr. McCabe talk about his journey over the past 53 years of following sports in Michigan and beyond, the Detroit Free Press, is stuff that so many people are going to love to hear. So please share it. In the meantime, get out there and sculpt your life. Get out there, strive for your best every single day. Love and respect others, and make sure you're living consciously. I appreciate you all.